The sun set like it always did, slow and glowing, sinking into the edge of the wide black river that curved around the village of Disowned. On this particular evening, however, there was a stillness that clung to the air like breath held too long. Even the crickets seemed to hush, as if sensing that something unspeakable was about to erupt. Disowned was small, nothing more than a tight cluster of dusty huts and mango trees leaning over narrow paths. Children ran barefoot between rows of cassava, and old women sat on porches chewing cola nuts, gossiping as though the world never changed. But change came that night, wrapped in smoke and screams. A house stood at the far edge of the village. Humble, with a thatched roof and mud brick walls. It belonged to the Bakars Amari and Lemba and their 3 children. The youngest was a girl named Ao, only 8 years old. She was quiet, always scribbling drawings with charcoal on bark, or humming lullabies she would learn from her grandmother before the old woman passed away. Her skin was smooth and dark.
Her eyes the deep amber of burning wood.
And she carried in her smile a sweetness that made even the surliest trader soften.
That smile vanished forever on the night of the fire. No one knew how it started.
Some blamed a fallen lantern. Others whispered of curses, of ancestral spirits angry for being forgotten. All anyone knew was that around midnight,
Flamme burst through the Bakar rooftop,
devouring the house in orange jaws.
Scream split the sky.
Amari and Lemba stumbled out,
Cooking and wild-eyed.
They pulled their eldest son behind them, followed by the middle child, coughing. But where was Ao?
Greco is still inside. Neighbor rushed forward.
But the flames were too high, too fast. And then somehow Ao appeared at the door, her small body silhouetted against the fire, her dress smoldering. She stumbled out, her arms raised, her face covered in black soot and blood. Half of her skin looked melted. Her hair was singed to the scalp. Her right eye was swollen shut. The village healer did what she could. Leaves were crushed. Pastes were applied. But the damage was too great. Ao survived. Her beauty did not. They say some scars go deep not into the skin, but into the soul of others. And for Ao, the deepest scar was not the one that stretched across her cheek. It was the way her father looked at her, days after the fire, like he was staring into something cursed. She brings bad luck, he muttered, drunk on palm wine. No child of mine would look like that. Lemba wept. She is still our daughter, she is alive. She should have died in that fire. He shouted. Look at her.
What kind of woman is this? She frightens the other children.
Even the goats avoid her. The gossip began like a slow drumbeat. Villagers started to cross the street when they saw her. Mothers told their kids not to play near her.
Whisper filled the air.
Fire child. Cursed one.
Omen of ruin, and then.
One morning, Amari handed Ao a tattered cloth sack. Inside was a piece of bread, an old water flask, and nothing else. He did not look at her as he spoke. You will leave this house.
You are not welcome here anymore.
Ao stood frozen. Her bandaged hands trembled. But where will I go? Anywhere.
Just not here.
This house will not shelter demons. And with that, he closed the door.
Greco wandered.
From village to village.
Forest to riverbank.
Wherever she went, fear followed. Some threw stones. Others called her names. Many simply turned away. At night, she slept under trees, clutching her scarred face with both hands.
Whispering to the star above.
Why me? And yet, life did not end. It changed. She nearly died in the 3rd week of wandering. Hunger gnawed at her ribs, and fever burned her skin. Her legs buckled beneath her beside an old banyan tree deep in the forest, a place no one dared to go.
And there, from the shadow, came a sound. The soft tapping of a walking stick. An old woman stepped into the moonlight.
She was blind, her milky eyes clouded by years. Her gray hair fell in ropes down her back. She wore layers of cloth dyed with plants and ash, and around her neck, dozens of beads clinked like wind chimes. Ao, she said. I have been waiting. Her name was Mama Nia. The villagers whispered about her, the witch in the woods, the one who talks to trees.
The forest mother.
Most believed she was long dead. But she was not.
Mamania carriait Y au bac tout de n'achuter.
Nestled between ancient trees and overgrown vines. There were no mirrors there. No eyes to judge. Only herbs hanging from the ceiling. Old scrolls stacked on shelves.
And the rhythmicum of forgotten wisdom. For weeks, Y lay in bed.
Drifting in and out of fever. Mama Nia fed her mashed roots and river water. Placed hands on her brow.
And murmure in old tongue.
When Ao finally awoke, she asked, "Why did you save me?" The old woman smiled. "Because the fire did not destroy you. It woke you, years past. Seasons danced in and out like breath."
Y greu tol and lean.
She wore a hood now, always covering her face. But inside, something else was growing stronger than fear.
Deeper than sorrow.
Mama Nia taught her everything.
How to read the star and the wind. How to listen to the pain inside a plant or the danger inside a wound.
How to make tinctures for fever.
Powder for sleep, potion for birth.
She taught her how to enter silence and speak with the spirit of the forest. And finally, she taught her the secret of ancestral memory, a belief that the wisdom of those before us lives not in books, but in blood. "You are a vessel, child," Mama Nia told her one night by the fire. "Through you, they will speak again."
YOS en l'irned tuil.
Her eyes learned to see beyond what others missed. People from faraway villages began to seek her out. They never saw her face, only the hood.
The voice like rein.
She became known as the Veiled Healer. Some said she was a goddess in human form. Others claimed she could cure curses with a touch. But no one ever knew the truth.
Notin-il the sickne cam.
It started with a rash. Then coughing.
Then blood from the eyes.
A strange disease swept through Dahoma, the very village that had once cast her out.
Panic rose like a tide.
People wailed. Children died. Elders collapsed in the fields.
And then one morning,
a convoy of carts appeared from the forest path. Men and women in white robes stepped down, carrying baskets of herbs, oils, and strange tools. At the center stood a tall woman in a long,
flowing cloak, her face hidden behind a golden veil.
She did not speak much. Only listened, treated, healed, and watched as the villagers bowed in thanks, unaware that the hands tending their wounds once begged for their mercy. Among them were two frail figures, Amari and Lemba, now gray-haired and hollow-eyed. They trembled as the veiled healer placed a hand on Amari's chest and whispered instructions to his wife. "You need to boil the roots," she said.
3 times a day. No less, the voice.
Lemba froze. That voice. Her eyes widened.
"No, it can't be," the woman tilted her head.
"You once had a daughter," she said softly. "She was burned in a fire." Amari gasped. How do you know that?" "Because she is standing right in front of you."
Silence.
The woman slowly raised her hands to her veil. And pulled it back. It had been many years since that dark night when little Amara was left alone in the world. The pain of being burned was one thing, but the searing betrayal from her own parents carved a wound much deeper. As the forest swallowed her small figure, and the stars blinked coldly above her, she had no idea what the future held. All she knew was that she had no home to return to, and no one left to call family. She wandered for days. People turned away when they saw her face. Some screamed. Others crossed themselves,
Muttering word like curse and bad omen.
Once, a man threw a rock at her.
Shooting, begone, devil child.
The burn had twisted her left cheek into melted flesh. The eye on that side slightly closed and rimmed in red. Her hair had burned off in patches. She looked like a ghost from a nightmare. She survived on stolen fruits and rainwater. Her tiny body grew weak, but her heart somehow kept beating.
Until one evening,
just before the sun disappeared behind the mountains, she collapsed beside a narrow stream deep in the forest. She thought it was the end. But then came a voice. Not loud. Not startled.
Just gentle and dull, like the whisper of leaves in the wind.
"Oh child. Even the trees weep for you." Amara opened her eyes to see a wrinkled face above her blind eyes, covered in a white film. and a scarf of red feathers wrapped around the woman's head. The woman did not flinch at her face. Didn't turn away. She took Amara in her arms like a mother.
My name is Mama Yka, the woman said softly.
You are safe now. Mama Ya lived in a small hut hidden deep in the forest, surrounded by wild herbs and whispering winds. The villagers near and far whispered about her. Some called her a forest witch. Others, a healer. No one dared enter her woods. But Amara found a world inside that little hut, a world of mystery, wisdom, and for the first time in years, acceptance.
Mama Yka was blind.
But she saw everything. She knew when the rains would come, when a baby would be born, when death hovered nearby. She spoke in riddles, in proverbs, and sometimes in songs. Her hands were always mixing, brewing, grinding herbs that smelled of earth and secrets. Amara became her student. By day, she cleaned and cooked. By night, she listened. And slowly, over months, Mama Ya began to teach her the old ways.
Yukaripin, Mama Tigreka said one night.
But pain can be a teacher.
If you darelisten, Amara esat, on so broken.
Began to heal not by forgetting, but by growing stronger. She learned about roots that cured fever, leaves that cleansed blood, barks that could heal a wound faster than any modern medicine. She memorized chants whispered in languages long forgotten. She learned to sense energy from people, to read the wind and stars. But above all, she learned to silence the noise of anger, and hear the voice inside her, the one she would buried long ago. Years passed. Amara grew into a woman tall, quiet and graceful, though always covered in a dark veil that wrapped her head and face. No one but Mama Ya had seen her scars for over a decade. But there was power in her presence now, something that made even the animals of the forest tread carefully. One day, Mama Ya handed her a bundle wrapped in red cloth.
Today, you will go beyond the trees.
Amara looked at her with surprise. You have learned enough. Mama Ya continued. Now go. Help those in pain. They will not know you, but they will remember your touch. So she went. Village to village. Her name began to spread.
The woman in the valley.
Some called her a spirit. Others believed she was sent by the ancestors. But everyone agreed wherever she went, healing followed. She never accepted payment. Just prayers and seeds to plant. No one knew her name.
No one knew her face.
Only that she appeared when needed, and left before dawn. But fate, ever silent, was turning its wheel again. In the village where she was born, Kasamba, a sickness began to spread. It started with one child, who woke with fever and shaking. Then another. Then 10. By the end of the week, even the elders were bedridden. Nothing worked. Not the new clinic built by foreign aid.
Not the vaccine, not the prayer.
Fear returned to the hearts of the people. And with fear came desperation. Amara heard of it through whispers carried by the wind. It is time, Mama Ya said softly that evening, as the sun bled red across the forest sky.
Time for what?
Time for you to return. And let them taste the medicine of memory. Amara's heart clenched. She had thought herself beyond vengeance. But the thought of walking into the very village that called her a demon, of seeing the faces of those who spat at her, cast her out like trash. She tightened her veil. I will go. The morning she arrived in Kasamba, the village was nearly silent. She came in a dark robe, long and flowing, with a staff carved from ebony wood. A wide hood covered her head. Only her voice, calm and commanding, gave away that she was no ordinary traveler. I bring medicine, she said. No one recognized her. But they knelt before her, begging for help. She entered homes where children whimpered in fever.
She les herbes beneat pios.
Whispered words that calmed even the dying. Her hands moved with practiced precision preparing teas, pastes, and oils. The villagers called her Mama Healer. And then, she reached the old house at the edge of the village. It had not changed much.
Sti broken roof tiles. Sti the mango tree out front.
She stepped inside. There they were, her parents. Older now. Weaker. Her mother lay coughing on a mat. Her father sat beside her, eyes red with worry. They looked up, and hope flickered in their faces. Please. Help her, the father said. She is dying. Amara knelt beside the woman who had once thrown her out like garbage. She applied herbs. She spoke old words. Her father clutched her hand.
Thank you, qu'un stranger.
May the ancestors bless you. But then, Amara spoke. Her voice was no longer just that of a stranger.
Ionsk knew a girl. Born in this house.
Burned in a fire. Left to die.
The man froze.
She was called cursed. A demon. Even by her own blood. He looked up sharply. Amara slowly removed her veil. Gasps filled the room. Her scarred face, twisted yet serene, shimmered in the dim light. Her mother's mouth trembled. Her father fell back. You.
Amara. Tears gatred in her mother's eyes.
It can't be. Amara's face was calm, but her eyes burned. I am the ghost you created.
The doctor you cast out.
They fell to their knees, sobbing. We were scared, her father said. We thought the gods were punishing us. We did not know. You knew. Amara replied. You just did not love enough.
Silence.
Then, her mother whispered. Please.
Forgive-us, Amara stood. For a moment, she said nothing.
Then.
Some wound never close.
But healing does not come from vengeance. It comes from truth. She turned away, her cloak brushing the floor. At the door, she stopped.
I have no hatred left.
Only a scar that reminds me who I am. And she stepped into the morning sun, leaving behind a village drowning in its own shame. News of the hooded woman's return spread like wildfire across the region. Whispers traveled through neighboring villages and markets. Children mimicked her walk in the dusty streets, and old women swore they had seen her cloak gliding past in their dreams. Some believed she was a ghost. Others thought she was a spirit of justice sent by the ancestors to punish the wicked. But in Kasamba, no one dared speak her name aloud anymore. They had seen her face. They had heard the weight of her silence. They had felt shame not just as individuals, but as a village, as a people, as a culture that once turned its back on the wounded. She had not cursed them. She had not shouted or sought revenge. She had simply unmasked herself. And in doing so, revealed the rot in their souls. In the days that followed, the villagers slowly recovered.
The children's fever broke.
The old ones regained strength. But the joy of healing was muted by something heavier, a haunting guilt. One by one, people began to gather beneath the ancient fig tree at the center of the village. This was the place where judgments were passed and celebrations were held. Now, it was where memories gathered like ghosts.
Elder Quam, on spruen loud.
Stood before the crowd with trembling hands. We failed her, he said. Not just her parents. All of us. Murmurs of agreement followed.
We let fear guide us. We let tradition blind us.
We saw a child in pain and called her cursed. A woman from the back spoke up.
I remember throwing salt at her shadow.
I thought it would drive the spirits away. Another man added, I told my children not to speak her name. I said she would bring misfortune.
Edognelo.
Eyes filled with tears. For the first time in decades, the village remembered Amara not as a mistake, but as a mirror. Meanwhile, Amara walked the forest path in silence, her staff in hand. Mama Ya was waiting. So she said, sipping from a wooden cup, you showed them your face. I did. Do you feel lighter?
Amara sat by the fire.
No. Not yet. But I feel clean. Mama Ya nodded. Truth is like river water. It does not always taste sweet, but it washes everything away. They sat in silence. Then Mama Ya asked,
Do you plan to return again? Amara hesitated.
No. I did what I needed to do. But your story is not finished. Child, Amara looked into the flames. I do not know who I am if not the girl who was burned. The girl who was cast out. Mama Ya reached into her robes and pulled out a tiny mirror framed with carved bone. She handed it to Amara. You are no longer the girl in the fire. And you are not the woman in the cloak.
You are something else now.
Amara stared at her reflection. The scar on her cheek had faded with time, though the mark would never leave. But behind the scar, she saw something else, a strength so silent it needed no words. She closed her eyes. I want to create a place. For people like me.
The broken ones.
The cast out.
The forgotten, Mama Y.A. Smiled.
Then go. And make it sacred. Over the next 2 years, a quiet transformation began in the heart of the forest. Amara, with the help of a few loyal followers, people she had healed along her travels, began to build something new. It was not a village, not quite a temple, but a sanctuary.
À place with no doors to slam shut. No ritual to judge you.
No names or birthrights needed to belong.
The sanctuary of the scorned.
People came from all directions. A girl whose face was twisted by acid from a jealous lover. A boy cast out by his tribe because he was born with a crooked spine. A widow blamed for the deaths of her 3 children, though it was the plague that took them. Each one was welcomed. Each one given a place.
A role, a voice.
They learned the old medicines, the forest languages, the ways of silence and strength. They wore no uniforms, but they walked in unity. And Amara, now called Sister Ash, became their guide.
Back in Kazamba, life resumed.
But things had changed. A new law was passed forbidding the shaming of any child for disfigurement or disability. The elders built a shrine to the one we rejected, lighting a candle each evening in her name. Some hoped she would visit again. She did not. But every now and then, people spotted figures in cloaks walking silently through the night, delivering medicine at doors.
Whispering wisdom to grieving mother.
They bore no weapons. Only calm. And when asked who they were, they simply replied,
We work for Haché.
Amara's sanctuary continued to grow, not in size, but in spirit. She wrote nothing down. Trained no one formally. But her teachings lived in the bones of those she touched. Once, a foreign journalist tried to find her, offering a large donation in exchange for an interview. She refused.
I am not a story.
She said.
I am the space between stories.
But there was one final thread left to tie.
One day, Mama Y.A. Calendar.
I am leaving soon, the old woman said gently. Leaving. Even trees fall. Child. Even rivers dry.
Amara knelt besider. I am not ready. You are.
You have been ready since the day you chose healing over revenge. Mama Ya reached for her hand.
I see you now.
Not the scar.
Not the pain.
I see the woman who walked into fire and became the flame. And when Mama Ya passed, the forest itself mourned.
The birds fell silent for 3 days.
The winds did not blow. And the sanctuary held a fire-lit vigil so large, even the stars seemed to draw near to listen. Amara scattered Mama Ya's ashes into the roots of the fig tree at Kasamba. She did it alone, without ceremony. And as the ashes vanished into the earth, she whispered, Thank you for seeing me. Then she stood, her veil fluttering in the wind. She did not cry. She did not bow. She simply walked away. But the villagers who watched from a distance knew. They had not just lost an elder. They had lost the chance to walk beside a legend. And so, they bowed not in guilt this time, but in reverence. Because the girl they once disowned had become a woman who walked with gods. The years passed. The sanctuary of the scorned,
On hidden deep in the forest,
began to appear in stories told across the region. Travelers spoke of a quiet place where the outcast were treated like royalty, where no one asked what you had done or how you looked, but only how your heart was healing. And through it all, Sister Ash remained a mystery. Some swore she was immortal. Others said she was the reincarnation of an ancient goddess. But those who met her truly met her knew she was more than myth. She was human. And that made her even more powerful. One stormy night, as lightning tore the sky open and the trees groaned under the wind, Amara stood by the edge of the sanctuary's outer path. A boy had come to her door barefoot, shivering, no more than 10 years old. His face was swollen, one eye bruised shut. He said nothing. He only handed her a note. It was written in a trembling hand. Forgive me. Please. Your father. Her breath caught. She had not heard from them, either of them, in over 20 years. In all this time, she had imagined this moment 100 ways. Sometimes she imagined her father kneeling, weeping. Other times, she saw herself turning her back on him,
walking away.
But reality was quieter than imagination. She turned to the boy. Where is he?
The boy pointed into the storm.
Waiting. By the fig tree.
Amara walked into the rain without a cloak.
She needed to feel the water. To let it soak through her scars.
Her strength, her silence.
When she reached the fig tree, she saw him. Older. Smaller. Bent from years and shame. He held a walking stick that trembled with each breath. And when he looked up at her, his eyes did not search for recognition. He already knew. Amara. He whispered. She did not respond. He dropped to his knees in the mud, hands clasped together. I was weak, he choked. I let fear guide me. I let your mother talk me into it. And when you screamed, I did not stop her. I told myself it was mercy. That a burned child would never live a whole life. His voice cracked. But you did. You lived more than any of us. And I have done nothing but regret. She stood over him, unmoving. The rain slid down her face like tears. I do not want forgiveness. He continued. I just want to look at you one last time. To see the woman I threw away. She knelt beside him, not to comfort, but to be level. I was not yours to throw away, she said softly. I never belonged to you after that night.
He belonged to the fire.
And the fire gave me back to myself. He cried, then deep guttural sobs that cracked something in the air. Amara closed her eyes.
I do not hate you anymore,
she said. But I cannot carry you.
Your shame is your alone.
He nodded, still weeping.
I only came to say goodbye.
And with that, she rose and walked back into the storm. Word of that meeting spread. Quietly, respectfully.
No one dared turn it into gossip.
It became something else, a kind of prayer. In the years that followed, Amara's sanctuary began sending emissaries to other villages. Not to convert. Not to scold. But to offer help. They mended broken bones. Helped abandoned children find new families. Held the hands of widows no one else would touch. And with each act of quiet grace, they changed the world. One scar at a time. But change, even when righteous, does not come without enemies. There were those in high places, chiefs, priests, even governors who saw the sanctuary as a threat. They teach people to think for themselves. One councilman spat.
Tout question authority.
They accept those we cast out. A wealthy priest warned his flock. She is not a healer. She is a witch. Her kindness is a mask. She leads people away from tradition. And slowly, resistance began to grow. At first it was small. Whispers. Warnings. But then came the fire. One night, a group of masked men descended upon one of the sanctuary's satellite camps in the west. They torched the huts. Burned the gardens. Chased out the wounded. A young healer named Femi was beaten until his bones shattered. He survived, but barely. And when Amara arrived the next morning,
the ground still smoking. The villagers stood watching in silence.
Unsure what she would do.
She said nothing. She only knelt in the ashes.
Took a handful in her palm.
And let the wind carry it away.
Then she stood. This is not the first fire, she said. And it will not be the last. But let them burn what they can touch. They cannot burn what lives in us. That week, she gathered her council. The sanctuary would not fight with blades or rage. But neither would it be silent. They would walk into every village that had turned them away and offer help again. They would carry their wounded. They would sing. They would wear white.
The color of rebirth.
And as they walked, people would remember not the pain they feared, but the peace they once rejected. It was the quietest kind of revolution. And it worked.
In time.
Even the priest who once cursed her came to her door. Old, coughing, with shaking hands. My son has the sickness, he said. They say your people can help. Amara looked at him. You spoke against us. I did, you said I was a witch.
He did, why come to me now?
Because I was wrong, she did not answer immediately. Then she motioned to one of her healers. Take him in. See what can be done.
The priest blinked. Just like that. Amara me size. You come to me à fater. Not apprecié.
That is enough. By the time Amara reached her 50s, the sanctuary had become more than a place. It had become a movement. Her followers, the Ash Walkers, spread across borders. They left no symbols behind. No churches. No books. Only changed lives. A girl once mocked for her stutter became a renowned speaker. A boy with no legs became a builder of bridges. A woman once branded as barren became the mother of 100 orphans. And every one of them carried Amara's teachings not in doctrine, but in how they touched others. But Amara's body, though strong in spirit, began to slow. She felt it in her hands, her knees, her breath.
One night, she sat beneath the star, watching the fearfully rise. Femi, now grown and strong, sat beside her. Do you ever miss your old name?
He asked. She smiled. No. Amara died in the fire. What rose from it is someone the world tried to forget but could not. He nodded. Then asked. Do you think they will remember you after you are gone? She chuckled. They won't remember me. But they will remember the kindness. The courage. The healing. That is all that matters. And so, as she prepared to leave this world,
she gave one final instruction.
Don't build a statue of me. Don't chant my name. Instead, find someone broken and stand beside them. That is how you honor me. Then, like Mama Ya before her,
she faded quietly into the night. No grand funeral. No last word.
Just silence and the echo of her life. But the next morning,
in Kazamba, something strange happened.
The fig tree where it had once bent under storms now stood straighter than ever. And from its trunk, a single white blossom bloomed. Out of season. Unexplainable. The villagers took it as a sign.
Not of mourning,
but of resurrection. 25 years had passed since Amara's death. But no one really said she died. They said she walked into the mist. Or she became the trees. Or she turned into a river and flowed into the hearts of those who needed her most.
No grave.
No shrine. Just the fig tree. And under its branches, people came. Old men who had cast out their daughters. Women who had shunned their neighbors for being different. Children searching for answers their parents could not give. They all came, sat in silence, and wept beneath its shade. And somehow, they left lighter. The world outside had changed. Wars had come and gone. Villages had merged, split, and merged again. But something endured, an unseen thread running through it all. The Ash Way. No government ever recognized it formally. No religion claimed it. But across the land, you could find its traces. A man giving his only loaf of bread to a stranger. A child tending an abandoned elder with patience beyond her years. A teacher kneeling to tie the shoes of a boy with burned scars on his arms without flinching. Wherever there was tenderness in unexpected places, people whispered, Ash was here. One day, a scholar from the Northern University came to Kasamba. She had heard the stories. She thought the myth-exaggerated tales of a girl with a burned face who became a saint. She had read all she could, but the records were scarce.
No portrait.
No last name. Just Amara the scorned. Or the hooded one. Or she who returned. So she traveled to where it began. To the fig tree. She found an old man sitting beside it, humming softly. Excuse me, she said. Are you from here? The man looked up. His eyes were clouded with age, but kind. I was born in Kasamba, he said. A long time ago. I am looking for information about Amara. He smiled. Which one? There was more than one. He chuckled. Oh yes. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Every scarred child who found a home after her.
Every mother who chose love over fear.
Every village that opened its gates to the forgotten. All Amaras, but the first one, the scholar pressed. the one who returned in a hooded cloak, and made the village bow. His smile faded. She did not make us bow, he said quietly. We bowed because we saw who we had become. And it shamed us, he told her the story. Not the version in books. Not the fables embroidered by poets. But the truth. About the night of the fire. About how the villagers turned away. About the scream. The silence. The 20 years of her absence. And the way she returned not with vengeance, but with a flame in her heart too steady to be snuffed.
The Cholard wept.
And when she asked if she could take a piece of bark from the fig tree, he gently refused. This tree is not a relic, he said. It is a witness. Let it remain. The scholar returned to her university and wrote the truth. Not as a history, but as a confession. She called her book.
We were the ashes.
And she was the fire. It spread quietly, then wildly. And for the first time in generations, people spoke her name not as a ghost, but as a guide. Decades later, a child was born in the very village where Amara had once been cast out. She was born with a large birthmark across half her face. The midwife gasped. The father turned pale. But the mother, her name was Lila, looked at the baby and smiled. She is beautiful, she whispered. What will you name her? The midwife asked. The woman did not hesitate. Amara, the villagers nodded, no longer afraid. In fact, they celebrated. For in that child, they saw not a curse but a continuation. And so the legend lived. Not because it was told with reverence, but because it was lived with courage. In the whisper of wind through the trees. In the quiet bravery of standing beside someone broken. In the refusal to turn away from suffering.
Epilogue, the night of the festival.
Every year now, in Kasamba and beyond, there is a night with no fireworks. No speeches. No stages. Just light. Each person places a candle on their doorstep. They do not say why. They do not name her. But the streets glow gently, silently like a river of stars. And if you ask a child what it is for, they might tell you. It is for the girl who came back when no one else would. Or, it is for the one who taught us how to look at scars without turning away. Or simply, it is for Ash. And as the flames flicker in the darkness, somewhere whether in spirit or in story, she bows her hooded head and smiles.